I'm sure the wait is worth waiting for this panel. Panel Analytics or AI, the investment conundrum. It's my honor to invite upon stage Mr. Venkatraman Umakant. Venkatraman, fondly called as Venkat, is a technology and business professional with diverse experience across software development, strategy, consultancy, business development, and alliances. He has performed global leadership roles across IBM, NASSCOM, and now V Technologies. Currently, he is a senior vice president and head responsible for IT strategy, IT business, and digital transformation of V Technologies and group companies, part of Sona Group. He is also senior vice president and head of Hire Me and Meta I Technologies. Venkat has been a founding member of one-of-a-kind national digital skilling initiative, Future Skills Prime. He was part of the advisory board of Karnataka Digital Economy Mission. Venkat is also an advisor to Generation India, a not-for-profit founded by McKinsey & Company in 2014. He is engaged with the India Leadership Think Tank, TILT, which is intended to generate leaders of stature, extremely passionate about people transformation as a mind coach and motivational speaker. Venkat is an alumni of IIM Indore and Anna University. Welcome, Mr. Venkat.
Now welcoming the next speaker for this panel is Shankar Rao Piriya. Shankar is a dynamic visionary leader with 20 plus years of experience in an information technology domain. He is an information tech evangelist, thought leader, solution architect, and a proficient subject matter expert in the space of cloud and IoT areas. He developed path-finding solutions in the IoT, smart EV charging solutions, utility monitoring solutions, smart lighting solutions, smart energy monitoring solutions, industry IoT solutions, and smart city solutions to the global markets for reducing the overall carbon. Being a highly competent information technology architect and business leader, he is a compassionate technology leader and passionate about build solutions for the growth and ground zero, making the impossible possible. He is committed to giving back to his community, involved in numerous philanthropic efforts, and is passionate advocate for education and social justice. He wants to mentor the next generation of programmers and building technology ecosystem. He takes pride in delivering quality IT products and solutions. So welcome to the panel.
The next speaker on the panel would be Sridhar Vedula. Sridhar Vedula is Global Finance Director, Johnson & Johnson. He has 20 plus years of experience in finance systems and data space. He currently leads the finance data strategy function and is responsible to establish the data governance, data management, and data analytics functions for the finance organization. In this role, Sridhar works with a cross-functional set of internal and external stakeholders to deliver people, process, and technology-enabled continuous improvement and innovation. He is currently leading the finance data function as part of separation of J&J's $15 billion consumer segment into separate standalone company. Welcome, Mr. Sridhar.
And he's also moderator.
And Mr. Sridhar would also be moderating the panel.
So moving to the next speaker for this panel, Ramaraju Pusapati. I'm really sorry if I mispronounce your name. So Ramaraju Garu has around 20 years of experience in analytics and automation and artificial intelligence. He worked for various Fortune 500 clients on their technologies and helped them to optimize processing and increase efficiency and get deep business insights. He is a PMI certified project management practitioner and Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certified. He was awarded a doctorate degree from Geetham in the year of 2021. He authored a book titled Artificial Intelligence for Everyone. Anyone. He is currently working as a senior manager at Capgemini for Insights and Data Business Unit. Thank you, and over to you for the panel.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us, and thank you for giving us this time where we can, brainstorm the ideas that we have together. And I think that's the best way to learn. So, as we were introduced, I'm Sridhar Vedula. I'm the Global Finance Director at Johnson & Johnson. But behind those titles and company names, right, we are always in the what we call is the analytics world. Right from our childhood, we are always analyzed by others and we analyze ourselves. So analytics is not new to any of us. And same thing with artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence is actually coined in the 1950s as a term, but as a concept, as an idea, it's there even well before that as well. So now, yes, it's a buzzword, but the technology itself or the groundwork for all of the technology is long time back. It was founded. So any of the technologies, it's not even just analytics or AI, any of our technologies, look at Google Maps, right? We use it now today on a daily basis, but the foundation for that is in 1950s. So what happens now is it becomes feasible, right? So that's how the AI became feasible now, but it is really a mature technology in that sense. And right here with me, we have the panel members. And my personal secret to success in my career has always been, have people much more smarter than you in the room with you, right? So that they can provide all the great ideas, and that's how you build great solutions. So very proud to have these as my panel members, right? Doctorates and IIM folks along with me, so really nice. So with that said, let me ask that question, right? As I introduced, right, analytics is not new, AI is not new to us, it's just now that they are collaborating. Raju, can you, go into the evolution of analytics itself, right? Because we see AI is built on top of analytics. So if we understand analytics first, then we can get into AI portion of that.
Sure. Firstly, thanks for this opportunity. I'm very privileged to be here and talking to all of you. So I thank the organizers for having me here today. So going back and talking about analytics, I would like to narrate how my career has started with analytics. So back in 2003, when I started my career, I got first opportunity to work with British Petroleum client. So British Petroleum is a refinery company. We all know that it's a refining company. They have two kinds of streams. Like one is upstream, which pulls the data from pulls oil from the ground, crude oil from the ground. And other systems are the downstream systems. Downstream systems, that is basically refining unit, which processes the crude oil and then generates it. What was the scenario back then is, so all these data systems are silos. So we have mainframes, a lot of mainframe systems available back then in 2003. So our job, like we recently joined in the company, our job, like we used to work in an offshore model. So every day as we start our work, our job is to pull the data from those mainframe systems, each mainframe system is running some scripts and then loading the data into some centralized table and then generate decision support system reports. We call it as DSS systems. We used to build that reports and give it to the end users or the business managers for analysis. So this is the first analytic part that I was exposed to on top of an mainframe systems. So basically what data they used to analyze is, they used to get how many tons or volume of data that was being explored from upstream systems, and then they used to compare with what was the production output that is there. And seeing this data, like this is yesterday's data that we used to provide to them. So seeing the data, they used to decide whether to increase the production or increase the data from exploration data or something like that. So it's basically descriptive where, like it's nothing, they used to see the data and then decide what needs to be done in the future. So that is the first kind of analytics that I was exposed to.
So descriptive is just like it tells what happened, that's it, right? There's nothing beyond that, it's just stating a fact.
It's like what has happened yesterday, and depending upon that, it's the human that takes the decision on what needs to be done based on the data, and then they proceed with that. So as technology evolved and as we moved forward, I moved on from British Petroleum to another customer called GE. So I was working for their GE in 2007-8, and all my career, entire my career, I was working on data warehousing systems. Like it's related to data analytics, AI kind of work that I was exposed to. So back in GE, that time technology has evolved. We moved away from mainframe systems and we came to data warehousing systems, centralized servers. Every corporate has their own in-house servers. So that time our job is to collect data from multiple data marts, again same thing, but this time it is not from mainframe systems. We not only giving the yesterday's data, we are also capable of storing the historical data. Not only just yesterday's data, because storage has become cheaper by then. And then with that storage, what happened is give us opportunity to store huge amount of data. And that data data was available for doing a lot of analysis, and through that analysis we were able to do diagnostic analysis. So what is happening is we were able to know if we noticed that there is sales have come down in particular quarter. The business used to get intelligence saying that why that has happened, because they can go back, drill down the reports and then see what exactly went down, whether it is upstream data or downstream data that is having problems, and they used to take diagnostic decisions based on that. So this is second part of the evolution of analytics that we are exposed to. I'll quickly move on to the next steps. So after 3-4 years, again, cloud has come. Cloud has predominantly dominated the technology trends that we are seeing till then. So with emergence of cloud and storage becoming a lot cheaper and compute power increasing day by day, what has happened is the business have come up with something called as EDWs, enterprise data warehouses. So they wanted to collate all the data, entire systems data from all businesses and build one EDW, which is a single source of truth, from where they can drive entire business decisions. So it not only gave diagnostics or descriptive analysis, but it also enabled them from something called as predictive analysis, with huge amount of data, volume of data that is available, and a lot of algorithms, like that complex algorithms you can run on top of it, and then you should be able to get predictive analysis from it. Predictive analysis is you will be able to, what does it mean is you will be able to know when certain mission or certain process gets failed. Accordingly, you will be able to rectify it and ensure that the process or the mission doesn't fail. So it gave an advantage to the businesses. So these three have evolved over a period of time with technology. And then we came with artificial intelligence. We are now talking about something called as prescriptive analysis.
Right. So as an example of this predictive analytics, right? So Amazon may not be able to predict whether I will buy a product or not tomorrow, but as a general area, Amazon can predict, right? This Vizag population will buy X amount of, let's say, any product, right? That's the power of predictive analytics.
That is what it is currently available. They ship all those goods to the respective locations well ahead. That is how they are able to deliver it in 1 or 2 days times to all of us, because that is a predictive algorithm that is running behind it.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And I'll further extend with emergence of AI and all to talk about what happened next after 2013 onwards, after we built in these EDWs and all. Artificial intelligence was, as you said, it was there since 1950s. So the term was there, but that time all of us failed to use that artificial intelligence because we don't have the infrastructure, like compute power, storage power, or the data that we talk about. It is not there. But with all those things opening up, it has become very easy for artificial intelligence algorithms to get built, and on top of it, we are able to do the prescriptive analysis also right now. So that is how it has evolved.
Great. Another thing that I noticed, throughout yesterday and today while we talk, right, about digital being pervasive, right, to a large extent of our 24-hour day, it is still highly analog. As long as you can put your device away, you still lead a very analog life, right? So I opened my drawer this morning to find a shirt to wear, right? And if somebody asked me, when was the last time I wore this shirt? No idea, right? Nobody records that information today yet, right? But as we evolve further into AI, there will no longer be this separation of you and a device, and therefore, as long as you leave the device, you're analog. That will go away, all right? So in that sense, Shankar, right, you work so much on IoT areas, right? So what are the advances where you will see this IoT really pervading our lives even much more than what's happening today?
Yeah. First of all, thank you everyone, ITAP and STPF for giving this opportunity to speak at this panel. Yeah, Sridhar, like as you said, like data, there are different ways of how data is being collected, right? And IoT has accelerated that data collection, right? Like so the sensors, the amount of sensors that are integrated into our day-to-day life, right? Like some knowingly, unknowingly, are collecting petabytes of data every second, right? Like as we speak, like maybe there are some sensors here that is collecting data about this building and all, right? Like some of the areas that we work on, like especially coming from the energy domain, right? Like I mean, like I think like everyone would heard about smart meter rollouts and all those things, right? Like so why is it required? Like why is smart meters required, right? Like because like see, electricity, the way it is supplied, the whole electricity grid is one of the complex machine that the humans have built, right? So to keep it giving power continuously 24/7 to match the supply and demand, right? So, but of late, the economics of energy supply, demand supply has changed with the intervention of renewables, like a lot of solar, wind and all. And also on the other hand, now we are talking about EVs, the electric vehicles and all that is coming into the mix, right? So now the electricity, the grid is collecting a lot of data about how the energy patterns have been based on the data consumption, based on the EVs that are being connected, based upon the solar energy that is being generated, even based on the weather forecast, right? Like how tomorrow, like or like what next hour, like what would be your solar output or wind output and all those things, right? Based on this, like data is being churned into the data centers, and then they're using the data, as you said, like not only predict forecast, like what will happen, and based on that take some timely decisions, like what needs to be done to keep the grid continuing, right? So similarly from the EV perspective, like where we are working on the EV charge stations, right? So again, like so India, it is very in the very nascent stage, but in US and Europe, since there are a lot of mix of EVs already, so there are a lot of regulatory requirements from the grid to make sure that the EV charging cycles are in sync with the grid, because they don't want to bring in maybe 100 charging stations at same time in an area, right? Like which will bring down maybe their transformer or whatever it is, right? So every time we need to continuously collect the data about the vehicle, the charge stations, the electricity power flows and everything, and use that data to again run through algorithms to decide like how we can optimize the whole charging cycles of it.
Great, that's a great insight into the future that we all are going to live, right? But as somebody said before us, right, with great power comes great responsibility. So in that space, Venkat, right, with your experience, right, technology cannot be without ecology, right? That's one of your statements. So can you explain further, like what kind of things that we should be worried about? Like how do you use this new AI responsibly, and what should we as leaders of the organizations really enforce in our own things so that we are not robbing the future generation just for our today's profits in the markets?
Thanks, Sridhar. That's a wonderful question. And first of all, thanks to ITAP for inviting me here. It's a pleasure. Yeah, a little bit of hurry because I had to catch a flight, but thanks for accommodating that. Coming to this question, this is something which is very close to my heart. When we talk about technology we all know is kind of an enabler. And the primary thing, in my view, is we should use technology rather than technology using us. And we heard from the previous panel as well in terms of how we are giving control to the machines and to really track about what's happening in our life. So the privacy per se, while we heard a lot of privacy in today's generation, but in reality the privacy is actually getting lost. Right? So the ecology perspective is, I keep saying that to my clients as well. When you talk about automation or AI, my one statement is whatever can be automated need not be automated. Right? So there are a lot of things where technology can play a role, but I think the first question we need to ask is whether there's a real need for that, and whether there's a value, and is there a payoff. Value is one part. There could be a value. Right? For example, you talked about the shower as well, right? If I need to take a shower, can I detect how long did I take? Now, is that really required is one point. Yeah, maybe in your case is there. I'm just saying that.
But required from whose perspective, right? Because
Correct.
if I'm the company selling the shower head,
Right.
yes, there is a need for me to know
Absolutely.
that. But as a user, you don't want to give that information.
Correct. So from an ecology perspective, my point is like when you talk about AI, there are a lot of ways it can help human life. Anything that we can do to improve that, I think that's where we can make the best use of it. I'll give you one example. We're working with a client who actually manufactures these X-ray machines. And one of their intent was, like it's an enclosed area because there's a lot of radiation, right? And we know that in today's world, the moment you get into a hospital, they do all kinds of tests, right? So they say it as a preventive thing, but there are other things as well. So their intent was, how can we reduce the radiation, but still have a good quality of image that would help them identify what kind of thing is there. Is it a ligament tear or a bone fracture, whatever it is, right? So that is more of an image enhancement, which is using computer vision. So if you're able to do something of that sort, where it is helping human life by reducing the radiations, but still having that result, I would say those kind of scenarios is where we reach to really look at technology and maximize it.
Great answer, right? So now we covered the evolution of analytics itself, and then we moved into AI, and then the society, our commitment, our responsibility to the society itself, right? But as you all know, right, my day job is a finance job, right? My job really is to make sure that whatever we do as employees of a company, right, we actually provide, add value to the bottom line, add value to the shareholders. So in that context, right, it's not a question of like, do we need to invest in AI or not, right? But how do we provide that investment in a way that is still responsible, right? So I will tell you, you're from Capgemini, Raju, for example, right? And I, from Johnson & Johnson as a client, right, don't want to invest in every new technology myself. I always look at my vendors to do that investment up front, come to us, showcase the value that they can provide, and then we buy into that value system, right? But now the question is, you as a vendor who has to be on the leading edge all the time and provide advice and guidance to your clients, how do you go and convince your leadership that you should invest in AI even though there is no return right away, right? Because there is no immediate return. It's not a billable hour for you for all purposes, right? So how does that mindset happen in your organizations?
Right. See, when we are dealing with our customers and trying to provide them the solution for their AI journey, it's not in 6 months or 8 months that they can reap the benefits. It's a long-term process. Like low-hanging fruits are already done with analytics.
Correct.
Like with AI investments, it takes a lot of time for them to get the benefits, and they have to be investing for a continuous period and then get the benefits. Right now, if you look at, if some vendor comes to me and talks to me about this is what I'm a confusion whether to go for analytics or for AI. There are certain checks that we normally do. The thing is, what is their data discovery process? Are they pulling out the right data from their industry or not? Because everybody might have thought about this, like we are calling data as the new oil. So it is something like we can little bit change it and say data is the new crude oil. So once you heat the crude oil at a temperature, first you get something called a petroleum gas. Similarly, we get something called as descriptive analysis and then diagnostic analysis. Similarly, how well you are refining the data, the process of getting results from it varies. So the end process here wherein you can combine artificial intelligence with the data and can get a long-term benefit. So it's not the day one that you get. You should have right volume of data, right technologies, and right investments for a longer period of time. Then only AI would work, and you will be able to get right benefits for it.
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So your question was more in terms of how do you convince a management in terms of why they need to invest on AI or so, right?
Absolutely, and specifically more from a vendor perspective, right? Because as a client, right, I never ever go with bleeding edge technology myself. I always look for somebody else, for the vendors to actually provide that proof, and then yes, we will invest into it. But you are on the vendor side of it, right? Have to go ahead and take that risk. How do you define that?
Sure. So I have been on either side. I've been as a vendor and a client as well, and I can bring that perspective from a consulting thing. I don't know, just a show of hands, how many people actually use Fire Stick or get into OTTs? I think the others are sleeping. Definitely they use. Okay. So typically what happens when you actually get into a Fire Stick or OTT, right? Most often we spend about 10-15 minutes just browsing. And we end up choosing something which by chance we might click something or we might just come out of that, right? So the reason I'm using this analogy is this is something which happens in the analytics and AI space as well. Most of the clients, they know that, okay, they have huge volumes of data. And the moment you say AI, they think that all the problems are going to get solved, right? So the first thing is about, as rightly mentioned by him, in terms of the data maturity, of course, that's very important in terms of what kind of data you have. Volume is just one part. The other important thing, even more important, is on the use case, like the OTT that I was mentioning, right? If you really know which movie you want to watch or documentary you want to watch, you can do a search, irrespective of whether it's Netflix or Prime or whatever it is, you get in and watch there. So it's a similar thing here. If you really know what exactly you want to solve for or what kind of insights you want, it becomes much easier. But otherwise, it's very easy to get lost. That's the first thing when it talks about analytics or AI. The second thing is also from an expectation setting. I remember when I was doing this role in managing the global AI ops thing in IBM. So the moment we used to go and talk to the client, they would say, oh, which means that it will predict by itself. We don't need human intervention. It can all be done, right? So that expectation setting is very important. That again depends on the use case that we have and the kind of data maturity that you have. And it's very important, as he rightly mentioned, about the data journey. That initially you might get into descriptive, then a predictive, and then you put in an AI model or so. And in the initial period, at least with the AI, the effort actually could go up a little bit, right? So that is something very important. Most people from a functional domain may not know that, right? So it's important to set the expectation that initially, because you need to identify the false positives and all of that, the effort could go up, but then it tapers down. So I think these are three elements which are very important from an expectation setting that needs to be done.
Okay, great answer. So Shankar, in that context, right, especially for IoT, it generates even more and more data, right? So it becomes even more difficult to convert that into useful information. So is there a requirement that you should need to have a strong data quality program in place, right? You're generating data, but is this really good data? How do we figure that out? Because again, from an investment perspective, I always want to make sure that we are investing money that can produce a outcome, a viable business outcome, right? So from that perspective, how do you ensure, as you generate more data, do you look into like, okay, how do I ensure the quality of this data, for example?
Yeah, I mean, like, so as you said, like, coming to IoT devices, it's much more easier to put in data, right? Like, so typically, if you talk to any customer, right, like the first thing he'll ask is like, yeah, first get the data, right? Like, so we start getting as many parameters as possible, right? Like, and then once we do a POC, like once we sit down, work with him, like what is the actual problem that they're gonna solve, right? So then maybe out of the 10 parameters, then we can lock in down maybe, okay, these are the 4 or 5 critical parameters that we need to track on a daily basis, right? And even out of those parameters, what parameters are the one that you need to make a decision on, right? Like say for example, let's take this room as an example, right? So probably maybe you are optimizing the HVAC unit of this, right, to optimize to save your energy, right? So you will be tracking the temperature, obviously, and then maybe you're tracking the occupancy, right? So to start with, I think like you will come up maybe different 10 to other maybe additional parameters like humidity, maybe luminosity or solar irradiance, something like that. But ultimately, when you drill down to the use case, you want to reduce the cooling or whatever, increase the cooling based on your occupancy so that the energy consumption is optimized, right? Yeah. So you dial into those two parameters like temperature and occupancy, and then you start tracking those parameters, and then you define your models like how do you reduce or like fine tune your HVAC systems based on the occupancy.
So great, right? So building on that one, Raju, right? So with data analytics portion, right? You are limited by the number of parameters that you can actually look at, right? But AI removes that limitation. You could literally take dozens or even thousands of parameters, right? So can AI go into a space where AI can actually identify which parameters are important? Because that is the human input right now, right? So can AI actually identify that themselves and go beyond?
Yes, definitely. The kind of capabilities that AI has, it should be able to identify the key performing parameters. So having said that, it depends upon the learning data that it has. So over a period of time, you have to build that data, and once you build that data, then only you will be able to train that model to pick up the parameters which are very valuable. And as he was rightly mentioning about IoT and big data technologies, IoT enabled us to capture data from anywhere. Like all the sensors have become very cheap now. The big data technologies are there. You are able to store huge volumes of data, and with the sensors being able to capture each and every point, we are able to get all the data within an industry, and we are able to build that data that is required for AI systems. And then over a period of time, if you continuously train that model, you will be able to pick up that key parameters that are required for decision making. Definitely it is possible.
So it is definitely possible to AI itself identifying the key parameters and then start monitoring them, right? So as you mentioned, right, building the models and everything else, right? So Venkat, that is where I get very nervous, right? Building a model means effectively you are allowing whatever biases that you have in your data seep into your model, right? So any discriminative biases that I have today will seep into that. So in that sense, your AI model is a reflection of your history, of your data, right? So how do we get into a situation where I'm not investing my money just to continue that discrimination or continue that bias, right? What are the things that we should look for that's not visible right away, right? I'll give you an example. We all know how we use these non-stick cooking pans, right? It's great advantage. It was sold like, it's easy to cook now, right? Easy to clean. But there is a element in there that's not visible at that point of time, that it's a forever chemical that will go into your body every time you use that, right? So how do you avoid those kinds of things when you build the model itself? Again, being responsible to the next generation more than anything else, right? So
the example that you use of a non-stick, right, that triggers a thought. I go back to the first point in terms of identifying the use case, right? Why do you want to do certain things? Why do you want to do what you want to do, right? Identifying that is important. For example, you talk about a non-stick, or even today we talk about this modular kitchen and so on. If you look at our style of cooking, it is not really meant for that. Example, in the Western world, they probably would garnish the food with olive oil at the end. They don't cook it in oil. They don't fry it in oil. For their kind of cooking, it is good. For us, it is sort of marketed in a different way, saying that you reduce the oil consumption, so you take it, right? So I think that is where understanding the purpose of that, getting to the root of it before jumping into it is very important. I'm just using it in a very simple term so that everybody can connect to it. So because what works there or what worked there may not really work for us, right? So I think that's the primary thing I would say that we need to look at. I'll give you one example. We are working on a project with a couple of institutions in Canada. We are working on a smart fabric. So this fabric will have the fabric-based sensors as well, which will transmit data. It's an IoT thing. It will transmit data on a real-time basis, and it can identify if there are anomalies, or it can even do some preventive actions as well. So during the conversation that we had, one of the very senior scientists, he said, we're going to have the 5G chip in that. Now, my point to him is, okay, have we really evaluated the consequences of that? Because it's still not proven. There is a huge amount of radiation which it causes. And what we are working on is a nice to have, not a must have. Now, if you're dealing with patients and on one side you have a 5G thing which is going to cause more radiation, it's probably, in my view, it's not required. Right? So I think it's important to really draw a line of what is really required and make use of technology for the best purpose, rather than trying to solve some problem or perceiving that you're solving some problem, but creating a bigger problem in the future.
Yeah, but that nice to have versus must have, right? The perspective differs. As a company shareholder, right? As an employee of a company, my primary responsibility is to my shareholders, yes, right? Building that profit. And then the other stakeholders come in, right? Shareholders first and stakeholders next, right? So I'll give you an example. In the Johnson & Johnson world, we produce baby powders, baby soaps, everything else, right? We build that baby soap with an expectation that it should have a shelf life of 18 to 24 months, right? And today, we have no idea how long it takes for people to use them. We know when we manufactured it, when it went onto the store shelf, and we know when it was sold. But once it is sold, when it actually got unwrapped, and when it actually got used, and when it was fully consumed, We have no idea on that. We are blind to that knowledge. If IoT can provide that level of knowledge, right, and say, most of your baby powders and baby soaps, more than powders, baby soaps, are used within 3 months only. By end of 3 months, it's completely consumed. That gives huge information to me. My R&D now don't have to invest so much money to keep the shelf life of 18 to 24 months. They will be able to invest only in R&D of the shelf life of only 3 months. And that reduces immediately my investment that goes into the product. And I can sell it at a cheaper price and have more people reach out to that, right? So the reason I am explaining all of this is like the perspective, right? So in my perspective, as a shareholder or a company perspective, it is not a nice to have, it's a must have to have that IoT information built into that wrapper or into the soap itself. So how do you do that? Sure.
Okay, I'll give you a nice example, which I had heard some time back. I understand from a shareholder perspective, you want to really improve your bottom line and top line both as well. And you want to increase your sales. This is one way of increasing your sales, right? Now, at the same time, if you look at from ecological perspective as well, are we giving the control to the companies to detect, or you have your own intelligence to see, okay, this is the shelf life? Couple of examples. One, if you look at any generic drug, right, they do have an expiry date. But I knew that because my wife is a biotechnologist. She says, like, even if it gets expired, for next 1 year you can have. There's absolutely no issues on that, right? But a common man does not know that. They would see expiry or anything to do with health, let me just drop it. So they're not going to use that, right? So that is one example. The other one, sorry, I just lost the train of thought.
Okay, we'll go to Shankar and say, is it possible, Shankar, to have that kind of a IoT built into your everyday life, right? Not just sensors in an energy system where it's efficiency. Now it's not even efficiency at that level. It's efficiency, a personalized efficiency we call that, right? Because again, any item that you use, right? If we can actually build IoT into that item, we will gain a lot of insights.
I think it's already happening. The number one use case is your cars, right? Correct. So the automobile 10 years back and now is completely changed. Now even if you see the advertisements, right, it is connected car, right? It's not just a car, it's connected car, right? It is tracking on a daily basis the movement. Even if you're not using it also, I think it will be tracking several parameters, right? So the car is tracking a lot of data, both how it is working and also how you are using the car. And then it is in giving back the data to two people, like to you on your mobile app, how you can optimize your driving, save fuel and all those kind of things to make your driving better. And also maybe it is fine-tuning its parameters to make your driving comfortable based on your driving style. And then it is also giving data back to the manufacturers to make them better, like how they can improve their vehicle and all those things. And also I think it is also giving data to the shop floor people, not the shop floor people, the service people, right? Like so to give you alerts on how, when you need to service the car, like give you some based on the predictive analysis, like alerting you like this part might fail, you need to replace it and all those kind of things, right? So I think it's already happening, right? Like so industry by industry. I think, as I said, electricity, right? It's not visible to you, like what is happening behind the scenes, right? But the entire grid is now transforming towards a more software driven grid to make your life better. Like they're understanding your utilization patterns and all those kind of things. So slowly the IoT is getting connected to your day-to-day lives, and then it is giving you insights of improving your day-to-day life experiences actually. And coming to your use case, I mean we cannot embed a sensor into every soap, but I think there are other ways, right? I think like as we have discussion in the other panel, right? So probably like a data might be coming from so other systems, like when they are browsing for a soap on Amazon or maybe Big Basket or something like that. So based on those patterns, maybe you can collect data and see like, okay, they are looking for a baby soap. So how frequently they are looking for a baby soap. So you can then identify the personalities, or like and group them and say like, okay, these people are using Johnson & Johnson baby soap every month or every 2 months, something like that.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So since you're talking about the IoT, the end objective is to really increase your sales, right? And technology may or may not be the solution always. Like this is something which Colgate did. There's a guy on Colgate who did. He became a rock star there. So they had to increase their sales. And you know what he did? Yeah, he just increased the circumference by a very small margin, right? Because then your consumption goes up and the sales went multifold.
Exactly, right? That goes into human psychology, right? We are creatures of our habit, right? So we always squeeze the same pressure to squeeze the toothpaste out. So if you increase the diameter of the toothpaste opening, you get more toothpaste out every time and you end up using more frequently. So that's there. So on the analytics perspective, Raju, right? So with all of this information available to us, right? Do we as organizations have to go into AI, or can we just say, I'm good with my analytics, right? Why do I have to go into AI, especially if there is not enough use case yet at this point of time, right? So how do we justify that? Again, as a finance person, my intent always is like not to spend money unless you can show that I'm actually investing money, right? So when I hear of AI the first time, it's like I'm spending money on some shiny new toy for the company. I'm not seeing the value in there, right? So how do you go about that?
See, the abilities of AI, it's like the investment that you are making for a period of time, say till it gets matured, the bot that you are building or the model that you are building, till you get the investments that you make on it, the return on investment, once it starts kicking in, you just get it in one or two months. So that is how capable the AI systems are. You don't have a limit for the capabilities of an AI system. Like once you have the right kind of a data getting into the model, and you have right kind of a data capturing mechanism in your organization, and once you use the right set of tools and the right set of model, you don't have a limit to what it can do. There are a lot of automations that we are looking at. Imagine now we have something called as translators that are available, right? Like 20, 30 years back, when you visit China, you'll not be able to communicate with them without a translator. Right now, the big companies have invested on those translators. They have given them the raw data of what mapping each language from Telugu to Chinese language, whatever it is. So they built that model over a period of time. Right now, if you look at the use case that they have built in terms of translating a language, just go to Google, translate from one language to another language, you will be able to completely eliminate the process of a translator, the requirement of a translator. That is the capability of an AI. So as an organization, we should have the right kind of a data and right kind of a vision where my investment is taking me. Then definitely AI would add value to it. And here, one point that all organizations or the persons who are implementing AI should take care is, it's not about the employees or the investors or the customers. They should also look at the other factor, that is society. How much they are like helping the society on a whole. So all AICS should meet the objective for implementing AI, and there are a lot of threats also with AI that we are hearing a lot of the different threats that AI can bring into our lives. Just like with data security, we heard a lot of threats in our previous panel discussion. Similarly with AI also, like there are a lot of concerns saying that what if AI overtakes humans' intelligence and start behaving by itself. So that is a greater threat that needs to be addressed. The way that AI is evolving, the ethics or the standards that we are putting in force are not at a pace that it is not matching the pace at which the technology is evolving. We are going there, but we are very slow in putting the ethics or the standards. But AI is evolving much faster than that. That is something which any industry who is investing in AI should take care of.
Regarding these threats, right? It's a human psychology to always be scared of something new coming up, right? So you have to say, is this really a perceived threat or a real threat? I'll give you an example. When radios became common in cars, right? Until that point, you have radios at home, right? You're in a safe environment, you're listening to radio, enjoying it, right? But once radio started to show up in cars, right, in automobiles, people are worried that you will be distracted now, right? Your span of attention on the road is going to be reduced because you want to change the channel on the radio station, right? And that is a risk. It's a perceived risk, right? Now we actually chat. There are some teenagers, right, who are actually chatting while driving in their cars, right? So that is proven to be more like a perceived risk where changing radio stations is that, right? So same thing here, right? Is it really only a perceived threat that AI is really going to harm us or making it difficult? Another example is like when we were kids, we had to learn all the multiplication tables by heart. There is no other way, right? But now you see when next generation struggles with remembering that, they have a calculator. Do you really need to remember that now? They have this phone in their hand all the time, right? So you say, yeah, if you don't understand like what is 18 times 18, that's okay. You have a phone, right? So you're good with this. So same thing, right? With ChatGPT, yes, today people may feel it's a threat. You lose your creativity, but maybe it's okay. Go ahead, yes.
Okay, probably this is the last comment and then I'll have to rush. So ChatGPT, as you said, is a great example. There's a lot of good things about it. It's there, it's creating a buzz in the market. But if you look at it, it's also creating or destroying a lot of creativity within humans, right? Now, simple thing, we talk about calculator, as you said, you used to use tables. Now, when the calculator came, you forgot that. The moment you had phones, I remember in my childhood days, I would at least remember 20, 30 phone numbers. Today, I don't even remember, like he was saying, probably he may not remember his number as well, right? So it's sort of making people a little lazy. I wouldn't generalize it, but yes, it is happening. And as they generally say that smartphones are making people dumb, right? So the creativity is definitely getting lost. Like people think that, okay, it can create poem and all that, but even when you write a poem, it's about your feelings and all of that which comes out, right? Which may not be there. So I think it is also about the individuals to distinguish that, especially on the arts, because today you can actually give a few amount of text and it creates an image for you, right? So that is a big threat for the artist because you're talking about a livelihood as well and good amount of talent which is there. So I think that balance is very important. As I started off, technology can do a lot of stuff, but is it really required? That question I think we'll have to ask continuously. So thank you.
From a timing perspective, right, we are at 46 minutes past, and I think you need to run to catch a flight next. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. So with that context, right, so there is no absolutely, right, a clear yes or no answer for these types of questions, right? A conundrum or investing or not investing in AI, you have to invest in analytics first, to build that foundation, right? Make sure your data is clean, your data is usable, right? Then you put AI on top of it, you get very valuable results. The example that Raju referred as well, right? That in our real world, in Johnson & Johnson, right, we have medical devices, critical medical devices where you actually give a blood test, you put a blood onto that machine, and it spins and uses some chemicals, gives you a diagnosis, like do you have sugar, do you have cancer, right? And those machines are in rural areas of the hospitals, right, all over the world. And if that machine fails, you have literally people waiting and they cannot determine the diagnosis of that. So what we use in real life is a lot of predictive analytics. We don't wait for the hospital to call us saying that, hey, our machine is not working anymore, right? We have embedded so many IoT sensors into that machine. Every single part is being tracked. And it's not just that one hospital, right? That same part is being tracked across all the hospitals. So we know that average lifespan, right? And we know the type of issues we will get. So many times we proactively call the hospital and tell them, right, we are sending a tech to your location to actually fix this machine before it breaks, right? So that is the power of analytics. And then building AI on top of it would be like hugely beneficial to all of us, right? All right, with that said, I think we are at the end of the time, right? So thank you very much. So thank you all.
Thank you, speakers. We request Lakshmi Garu to kindly give them the mementos. One.
Can we start? Come, sister. Start.